like my top core value as a human is connection. I believe so heavily in connection, and I believe that connection is happiness. And this is just my own, personal, thing. This is what I speak about at my events. But if we have the right connection with in three areas, we'll be happy. With others, if we have good connection with other people, the people around us, if we have a good connection with ourselves, so if we're actually working on ourselves, and if we have a good connection with our environments, then that's it, baby. That's happiness right there.
To reason with someone is to motivate them to do or accept topics, ideas, and issues through discussion and having conversations. This podcast is about the relationship with ourselves and the relationship with others, finding our stability in our self-worth, and how do we actually be in healthy relationships. We find this out through connection, compassion, and communication. Reach out, connect with me, like, subscribe, comment. I want to unpack whatever it is that we can to really get to the nitty and gritty of finding out how do we get better in ourselves and how do we get better in our relationships. Welcome back to the podcast, Reason with me. Today we have an absolute legend, a real, authentic, absolute killer in the field of mental health. His name is Matt Grant. He's married with 3 kids and lives in Sydney's Northern Beaches. He's the host of a podcast called Real Life with MG and organises mental health events called One Conversation. He's also a facilitator with Unleashing Personal Potential and has worked in the fitness industry for 15 years. His biggest passion is helping people learn how to live lives of happiness and fulfilment. He's an awesome dude, and we talk so much in a really real way, and I really hope that it can kind of connect in over to the listeners, and you guys really can get a lot out of it. So enjoy, let's do it, and please reach out and comment and like and subscribe if this is a bit of you. Thank you. All right, so welcome back to the podcast. I'm sitting here with Matt Grant, MG. Matty, how you doing today?
I'm very, very well. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to chat.
Yes, I have been a big fan of your Instagram and just been like checking you out and love the work you've been doing. And I thought one day I'm going to get this guy on the podcast. So here we are. And let's jump straight in. Let's start with, who the hell are you and what do you do?
Firstly, thank you. That's a very, very kind thing to say. I've been I haven't been as vocal as I'd like to be on socials just because my current job is taking up a lot of my time. But I genuinely like that stuff. I like promoting, positivity and connection and a lot of the stuff that you speak about as well. So thank you for that. Great feedback. Who am I? My name is Matt Grant, as you've just mentioned. I live in Collaroy in Sydney's Northern Beaches with 3 kids, 3 young boys, Archie, Harry, and Jack, and my beautiful wife. I was working in fitness for like 15 years, and I ran a gym, health retreats, outdoor business, corporate. Like I kind of feel like I did everything in the fitness industry, or most things anyway. And everything got a bit too much we'll probably get into it, but from a kind of stress perspective. And I decided that I needed to, because whilst I was doing that, I was also running mental health events called One Conversation. And that was always that was my jam. I love speaking in front of people. I love preaching, all things mental health. And again, we'll probably dive into that stuff. But when push came to shove, I was like, look, I prefer speaking in front of people rather than, running a fitness business. So I got a job with this company called Unleashing Personal Potential, and I run leadership programs in schools across New South Wales. And yeah, it's been busy, it's been big, but it's been good. It's been rewarding. So like in a nutshell, in 2 minutes or whatever that was, that's me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess what I hear is that real passion to be able to speak and connect to as many people as you can through awesome platforms and good ways of kind of getting that message out, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think that times have changed, and hearing, I feel like there's voices that need to be heard and stories that need to be shared. So, I'm someone who wants to, share the right stories and try and impact the right people. So, my life is in a weird place right now, but it's heading in the right direction.
Yeah, no. And you look, and I appreciate coming with all of you. And I think that's what I really like about your podcast, and it's, real, right? So that's the whole point. So I love that you're able to kind of be vulnerable, and we need more of that. So you preach that shit with your heart on your sleeve, which is awesome. So despite that, I guess, wherever you're at right now, where did it all kind of come to be? Why the mental health direction? Why the hunger for connection as well?
Look, how long you got? This is, I've been struggling for many, many years, and I was about 21 when life was just in a really bizarre place. I was really fit. I was really successful, quote unquote successful, like I was making heaps of money and drove an awesome car and had heaps of friends, family who loved me, but my world came crashing down. I was putting too much pressure on myself in that I was working really long hours. I was partying all weekend, like from Friday night through to Sunday night, like hitting, party drugs, lots of booze, and I was in a lot of debt because I bought an apartment and all this kind of stuff, and the stress caught up with me, and I ended up being diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and chronic fatigue is debilitating. I'm not sure if you know much about it or if you've heard about it, or I'm sure you've heard about it. Sorry, but I was bedridden for a good 6 months, and then it was 5 years of just this complete exhaustion, really sensitive eyes, and for a young lad, early 20s to mid 20s, dealing with that when all your mates are out partying and having the times of their life, when this is what I'm having to deal with. It was hell, man. It was hell, and there's still things that I suffer with now, and that kind of turned into depression really quickly. And I've got depression all through my family. I've got mum's side and dad's side. So I guess it was going to hit me anyway, but depression and anxiety are two things that I struggle to battle even to this day. Like we were speaking about before we jumped on this, it's something that I've really got to work on. But when I started to come out of it a little bit, I started to share with people how I was feeling, and people were just in disbelief because I was this, fit dude with a great job and heaps of friends and all this stuff, and when I told people, the amount of people that hit me back and went, I suffer from depression as well. Or, you hear stories about these young people, successful people taking their lives. And this is where I just thought, fuck this. Like, sorry, can I swear?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I thought, fuck this. I want to do something about this. And that's where one conversation was born, my mental health events. I thought I'm going to put on this event to give people a great understanding around what depression does look like. I had some very, some public figures come along and speak, and it was an amazing night. And that was where I was like, this is a thing. People need this. People need fitness. People need to, be fit and healthy. But when it comes to mental health, man, this is where I really want to make a difference. So that's kind of where that stemmed, where the passion for mental health and connection stemmed from.
Yeah. I mean, I can feel that. Even the way you talk about it really comes through, that passion, which is awesome. And I think that the beauty of it all is having that experience of when you started to kind of talk about it, when, maybe not talking about it at first, and then starting to kind of go about it. I loved it. I listened to your podcast the other day, and you're like, depression, what the fuck is that? You mean the Great Depression? I love that.
Yeah. Well, it's true. Like now, I don't know what the stats are I mean, you might know what the stats are, like, but so many people take antidepressants. There's so many people out there who are struggling with their mental health. But when I was younger, no one even knew what that was. What are panic attacks? What is depression? What is anxiety? Whereas now it is everywhere, which is a good and bad thing,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a good and bad thing, because I think that we're talking about it a lot more, but we're short-circuiting the way through it a lot more as well, getting through it with just our GP to take one pill to hopefully let it all go before we need to maybe talk to someone else about it, right? And I think that can still create a lot of problems. We're we want the quick fix solution. It doesn't really work that way with, because I mean, I think the way I look at depression, and be interested to see how it aligns for you with like the pressure cooker of what you were doing, is depression is just I guess a symptom of having a human that doesn't have or has unmet needs, and they've just gone about meeting those needs in lots of different ways that weren't really serving them at all.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more. And I think that there's a difference between like not feeling fulfilled and being depressed. And this is what I'm flirting with at the moment. It's like, do I have that feeling of fulfillment in my life? Because I've got so many great things, but then I can still be really sad. So you think, well, what is that? Am I going down the right path in my life? Or am I depressed? So for me, that's kind of where I'm at, man. And that's what the last 10 years has been for me. It's like, well, how can I create my life so my life is a happy one, despite, everything I've got around me is happy, man. Like, like what I get to do in my job, I get to speak in front of hundreds of kids every week.
Yeah.
I've got 3 beautiful children, live in a great part of Sydney, great part of the world, but then I still can experience these super sad times. So yeah, it's this, balance between, what can I change in my life versus how do I work on my mental health from like a clinical perspective, if that makes any sense. Stop me if I'm just talking shit.
No, man. I mean, I relate to it, but maybe I talk shit as well, so maybe we might be on the same page. But for me, it's this. What I kind of hear you saying is that there's not really a such thing as recovered. Like I've got to constantly balance. I got to constantly see where I'm at with this stuff. So it's going to ebb and flow and shift and change. And if I'm not kind of looking at it daily, then I'm going to slide out of it. And then I have to have awareness and insight to be able to go, oh, shit, I need to get this back to where it goes. So it's all trial and error at the end of the day. And there's sometimes it's going to work for longer periods of time. And other times it's like, for whatever reason, all the right things aren't working. What keeps kind of irritating me? What keeps going on?
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. I definitely hear you. I hear you loud and clear.
So I guess, Maddie, what I'm really interested in is that the chronic fatigue side of it. Because obviously what you're saying is like pressure didn't necessarily create diamonds. It created like this long illness that floored you, literally flattened you on your ass for 6 months, and then I guess progressively over time. So where does the chronic fatigue sort of fit into it all? Obviously it makes sense with we're going to get depressed after it, but where does the fatigue or come into it now? Or what's that process been like?
Oh, it's been a journey, my friend. It's been a journey. I kind of, when I was around that 21-year-old mark, that's where I was at my highest peak of partying, everything, like I kind of said before, I don't want to repeat myself, but I was going, I was pushing life as hard as I could. And I was just really tired. And I was thinking, well, what the hell is going on? Why am I so tired? It's obviously because I'm partying all the time. But then I went and saw a doctor and they were like, oh, you had glandular fever. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, cool. But they said it's almost gone now. You're good. And then I just kept on getting these really big tired bursts, like to the point where I would just suddenly, like just really, this like cloud would come over me of just complete exhaustion. And I'd just be like, oh, what just happened? My vision would go blurry. I literally would barely be able to see things. I'm like, and that went from happening every, couple days to every day to just a constant thing that I just had. And it was obviously that, dead immune system, just slowly getting worse and worse and worse till it was like, all right, you're fucked now. You're fucked. And my mum was the one that actually diagnosed me with that. Like, I mean, we couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I was seeing every doctor I could possibly see to figure out what was going on. I even was seeing chiropractors because maybe my neck was out and that was affecting my brain or, everyone. And no one could tell me what was wrong with me. And then my mum just Googled all of the symptoms. And then it was like every single thing when you type in chronic fatigue, it was like, that's it. Like eye sensitivity, terrible memory, zero libido, like just pure exhaustion, and that's when it was like, that's where the road to recovery started. But that was hard because when I started to get a bit better, like, and by getting better, it was just looking after myself, resting, eating well, not drinking. But when I started to get better, I was like, let's push this a little bit. And I started partying again pretty hard because I was like, I still wanted to fit in. I wanted to be a normal person because I hadn't felt like a normal person for so long. And have you experienced that side of things before, from going from partying to not as much?
100%. And I think that's sort of the dip in and out of what's good for us, what's test the limits. And like, we need to let our hair down every now and then, but the limit, if we've known a life of going to the extremes, it's like, I'm either going to fully send it or I'm not going to do anything at all. So learning the limits is really, really challenging. And I still fuck that up all the time, whether it be extremes in my relationship choices or the conflicts that I'm having or, the partying that I'm doing. Like, I still got to question it because, I guess we've all got that kind of message as well. It's like, we create our identities in lots of pockets of our life, in lots of domains in our life. So when we shift away from that, we go, I want to come back to that. And then, again, it comes back to reconfiguring it and balancing it, right? So, I totally relate to that. Totally.
Yeah. 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 So that was kind of, I'm not sure if that answered your question around the chronic fatigue, but it's, it's still something that I feel now I have to work even harder on myself in order to be in a good place, like I know that if my diet is shithouse, and if I'm drinking more than usual, and I'm not exercising and not looking after not resting, which is hard when you got 3 kids, man. Like last night I slept on the couch because my son kept on coming in to my bed, so it's hard. But the more I look after myself, the better I feel, like with us all. But I feel like someone who has been through what I've been through, it can be quite extreme. Like the exhaustion can be extreme still if I'm not looking after myself. If that makes sense.
No, it totally does. And I guess I'm a big believer in, and I work a lot very somatically with people. And I guess that notion of like the body does keep the score of what's going on for us. So I imagine like what you're talking about is that it coming back is very dependent on obviously what the input is, what's depleting us, what's energizing us. But a lot of that is circulated around, your mental fitness, your mental wellness, to determine whether that fatigueness or chronic fatigue sort of comes back. Is that right?
Absolutely, man. Yeah. No, spot on. And it's just an ongoing battle. Battle.
Yeah. And I mean, I've treated a few people with chronic fatigue and chronic pain and just like autoimmune diseases and all those types of different things. And the biggest thing, I guess, is that stress, right? So when we're not aware of that part of it, that it's like the mental strain or the emotional part of us, as if when we have emotions, it creates that inflammation, and inflammation kind of creates lots of stress on the body. Then we go back into these real physical symptoms, and we keep trying to treat the physical symptoms. We're just constantly in this cycle. And I like that you kind of just go, no, I just need to be doing me and what's right for me and serve me and have happy things around me, right?
Yeah, which is easier said than done, you know. I mean, you can't just eliminate all stress from your life, you know, full stop. Like you can't just, well, yeah, totally. You know, I've got a busy work schedule, and, you know, when I do get bad, like, I mean, to be honest, right now I'm not in a great place. Just to be perfectly honest with you, like life's just pretty challenging. My wife and I are really figuring out, cool, what can we do to make things better? Like not just for me, but for our family. And, you know, she's having to work weekends just because life is expensive right now.
Sure.
And we're trying to kind of get her to not work weekends, so I don't have to look after the kids on my own too much. Like I don't want to work all week and then have to look after my kids all weekend. I say have to, I get to, but it's busy and it's draining. So I heard something really cool the other day, and it was, you know, it was a question. It was, are you living in the chapter of your life that you're living in? And it was something along the lines of that. Or are you embracing the chapter of your life that you're living in? And what I kind of took from that was, what you've got on right now, you've got on right now. So how can you live the best life you can for what you've got going on right now? Like I can sit here and whinge to you and go, you know, I've got 3 kids, it's really hard and all this stuff. And the bottom line is, I've got 3 kids and it's hard. But how can I make that easier for myself? What does that look like for me? Is it, you know, a weekend away with my friends every, you know, few months? Is it a, you know, date night with my wife once a month? Is it like, what is it? But this is the chapter of the life that I'm in and that you're in and that everyone listening is in. You know, how do you embrace the life, or how do you show up in the life that you've got right now? Because it's not always going to be like this. Like you run a business, Jackson, you know, like it's stressful. It's not easy, you know, but what do you have to do to be happy now whilst you're running your business now, and how things are going now? Right? Mm-hmm. Because in the next 10 years, things are going to be different. Who knows? You might have kids, you know, life will be different for you, but then you just have to embrace that chapter of your life and live in that chapter of your life.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, man, everything. You don't have to doubt that shit. It's making perfect sense. I think that the
yeah, good.
The embrace or what I kind of hear is like acceptance, right? This is what you got. You know, everybody else is taken. You got you, right? So that is, well, what are we going to do with that? If we are resistant to it, I imagine that's what creates more freaking chronic fatigue, right? But if we can kind of embrace it and say,
absolutely,
how do I shift, right? And I love, because, I mean, I'm going to keep saying this because it's what you do. You're real. This is real. It's not like, this is what recovery or recovered looks like. You can get this life. It's like, nah, man, tomorrow might be shit house, and I need to have acceptance around that might happen, and have my plan and have my ability to go, what needs to kind of help embrace it and help ease it, right? And I love that, because that's fucking real.
Well, look, that's me, man. Like, you know, like my podcast is called Real Life with MG, you know, and that's just, I like to, people, like someone said this to me the other day. It's funny because so many people in life, what their job is or what they're doing is they're trying to talk themselves up and say, look how good everything is. But it's like, nah, man, like it's not always like that. And if we paint that picture, then we're not helping anyone. If I can say to you right now, I mean, there might be people listening who unfortunately are struggling to fall pregnant, you know, and this is so common, you know. Being a personal trainer for all those years, I get told by so many clients, you know, like, oh, I'm pregnant, don't tell anyone, it's really early days, and then you hear that they've lost the baby and all this kind of stuff. And it fucking makes me, right now, I just feel super emotional even thinking about that. But people like that who might be listening to this thinking, well, look, this guy's got 3 kids, but it's like I said, this is the chapter of the life that I'm in right now. And I'm blessed that I was able to, you know, have these 3 beautiful boys, and I love them with everything in my body. But it is hard. It is really hard. So I've got to find ways to go, cool, I know that this is going to be hard, but how can I make it easier so I can show up as a better dad, as a better husband, as a better podcast guest, as a better friend, you know? So yeah. Yeah. So I like to mention that. And thank you for pointing that out, the real stuff, because that's me in a nutshell. Like, I've got freaking, like, in my last podcast episode, I've never cried that much on a podcast, like, or on a video or anything, because I read a letter of that I read something about my friend who passed away when I was 18, and it brought back those memories, and I'm just crying. And like, a lot of people wouldn't share that, wouldn't show that, because it's like, this is a grown man crying. And so people would look at that and go, what's this pussy doing, or whatever. And it's like, well, for me, it's like, I want to show you that I am emotional, you know, because I'm not going to, I've put that brave face on for too long. When I was heavily depressed years ago, remember I was at a party once, and one of my best friends said to me, I wish I was like you. And I looked over at him, because he just saw me happy and all this stuff, and it was all fake. I was heavily depressed. And it just shows that brave face. It's got to go, you know, it's got to go. We've got to be able to show our true emotions.
100%. And that, yeah, I mean, it's interesting as someone listening to that podcast, and I'll put a link to that episode, because it is awesome and really real and raw. And I guess we're recreating some of that now, which is also really great for everyone listening here. But just the power of when you shared what you just shared here, and maybe others are picking up on that. But when I was listening to your podcast, it brought back the time when, I lost a close friend that was just in a similar, you know, again, it was North Shore in Sydney, up in North Shore, to suicide, you know, young, and we're all at school still. And it just, actually, really after school, maybe it was after school, just the start of uni. And it fucking hit everyone like a ton of bricks, but everyone came together. Like, all schools, all these close around, getting shivers just talking about it. Like, it was full of people that were just shocked, absolutely shocked that someone like, you know, his name was Nick, someone like Nick would be able to do something like that when no one knew that he was depressed. No one knew that was going on for him. And yeah, it was from there that really shifted me. And I think, you know, definitely part of your story that shifted you. And that's why I resonated so much with it, which was really powerful, is like, people were powerless in that point, and people need and still do the ability to know that we can talk, we can share, we can support others to talk that don't want to talk. We can support these conversations and start to have that openness and availability. And even just you sharing what you share, I have a story. And then what I've just shared, someone else has a story. And then what they share about, listen to this podcast, and we're getting very, you know, what's it called? Inception, right? But the reality is everything touches everything, and we have these degrees of separation. We can keep making that impact instead of that fucking surface level bullshit chat. We can have depth. It's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, man. It's yeah, and this is why I created One Conversation in the first place, because once you do open up, you hear so many people's stories. I remember I was seeing a physio, and at this physio they did group sessions where there's just 4 people in the like physio class thing together, working on like your rehab stuff with one exercise physiologist. And there was this chick that came in, right? And she would come in and she was always joking around. She came in one day wearing a helmet, like a bike helmet. And I was like, what are you wearing that helmet for? And she goes, oh, last time I was in here, I banged my head. So I didn't want, and she was just joking around. Like it was like her way of joking, like so she doesn't hurt herself in a gym, hilarious. And then they posted on their Facebook a week later, it still gets me a bit. A week later, saying rest in peace to this young girl. She would have been, I don't know how old she would have been, but it would have been between 18, around about 18. This girl was telling me she wanted to play professional soccer. And then a week later, she goes and she takes her own life. Like I reached out to the guy who runs this business. I'm like, what fucking sick joke is this? Who's posting RIP, to this person? That's not funny. And he goes, man, yeah, she took her own life. And like I had this severe, like every emotion ran through my body. Sadness, anger, not every emotion, obviously. It wasn't no happiness and whatever, but I was sad. I was angry because I'm thinking, if I don't know what I could have done, and I didn't do anything wrong because I didn't know anything, but it made me so upset that someone, such a beautiful young girl, could go and do that when she's just talking to me about her future. And this just keeps happening. We keep hearing this shit. You hear on the news, there was that Twitch or Switch or whatever, the Ellen DeGeneres's DJ or whatever. I'm not sure if you heard about that. You probably did, who took his own life. And everyone is shocked. The world is shocked. Everyone is shocked. And yeah, I'm shocked, but not as much as a lot of other people because I understand what depression feels like. That big smile, that big dance that you would see this guy who's always dancing, and for me, and I don't need anyone to reach out to me right now and worry about me from that perspective, right? Like I don't want you to worry about me, Jackson, and think like, oh, this guy's suicidal, because I'm not. But I understand what it feels like to be in the darkest place your mind can go. And these stories that you hear, I wish they didn't resonate, but they do resonate in that respect. But this is why we need to speak up. This is why we need to show emotion. This is why vulnerability is a good thing. It never has been. Growing up, playing sport, I went to a decent school and stuff. Like you don't show weakness, man. But then now you look at what the fuck is happening in the world. And, people have to understand that you can show emotion, you can speak up, and we need to speak up. So I get so passionate about this, man, because like I said, it makes me angry and sad at the same time that people are taking their lives, because I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it, because it's just so fucking sad that, that it can just go that far, that it can reach that extent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I resonate as well with some of those stories, and I've been in those points in my life, and then they're terrible and not nice places to go. And I can see the powerlessness. I guess I've been in a powerlessness, helpless place before. And that, we need, there's a lot of factors that come into what makes or breaks that, I guess, for a lot of people. And I think that having conversations like this and doing the work that you're doing, I just sit here and I guess I run an Instagram, but I sit here and see the people that are choosing to rock up. But there's a lot of people that have a lot of, I guess limitations in the way
that is
to get support.
That is a really powerful thing that you just said. Choosing. I think we need to choose the right options. We need to choose to put the work in, because as you know, you can treat someone, you can have the best session ever, and you could just completely blow someone away. You could change their life for, a matter of weeks or whatever. But it's like, if this person isn't going to keep choosing to put the work in, then they're not going to get anywhere. We need to choose to work on ourselves. We need to choose to show up better for other people, because we're not. I speak about this at my events, but I show a photo that I posted on Are You OK Day years ago. And it's me pouring a beer on my head at my wedding. And it says, you don't know what people are going through. People are actually struggling, meaning that even though I post these funny photos and whatever, I struggle with my mental health. I said, we need to be reaching out to people to see how they're doing. But then on that Are You OK Day, I reached out to 0 people, not one. I just posted on my socials and just said, you know, there are people out there who are struggling, reach out. But then I didn't actually take action. We need to choose to take action, to actually reach out to people and to actually reach out ourselves.
Hard. And I think that, you know, again, I think it comes down to choice. And there's going to be times where we're at the receiving end, and then there's going to be times where we're able to give. And that's what we need to kind of be able to rely on, is more of that, right? So I think that's what's going to do it. But it's things like the work that you're doing. And, you know, I know we probably could talk forever, G, but that you're teaching kids this shit. You're going in there and talking in schools at the moment to teach them leadership skills. And I imagine the mental health stuff comes into it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does. It definitely does. You know, there's different programs that we run. Some of them are a little bit more mental health based. We teach leadership skills, so which is going to help with people's mental health, but it's not specific mental health based. It's not teaching people about anxiety, about depression, about panic attacks, you know, but we're teaching people how to be better leaders, which is going to help them with their mental health. You know, anything that is teaching people to be better human beings, you know, because that's what we need. We need to be better human beings. We need to be more compassionate, kinder, you know, more empathetic, you know, and the more that we teach this stuff, and, you know, I love working with kids. It's awesome, but it's hard because then I'll go to work with adults, and the adults that I work with, it's always so much deeper, you know, like again, my one conversation events, I'd run one a month if I could, run one a week if I could, but it's just more about, you know, getting bums on seats, you know what I mean? But these are just so powerful, but it's hard sometimes when you're with these grown men and grown women who are struggling, and you think, fuck, I wish there was a way that I could have, or someone could have gotten into you sooner to have prevented, you know, the depth to where this has gone, you know? I'm sure you understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's been part of my journey. I started really getting into like the realms of the trauma work that I did it's actually on the Northern Beaches. It's called South Pacific Private, really, really great trauma treatment center for addiction. And yeah, I was like, what the fuck is happening to these little kids? Because they were talking about what happened in their early experiences, but they're waiting 50 years to talk about it because they're in addiction. And I'm like, I need to go and help these kids out. So now I switched, and I went from really traumatized kids in the state to back to addiction when it's like all not been dealt with, and jumping between the two. And I think there's beauty in both. And I guess from that, and what those one conversations are kind of doing is, well, yeah, I guess it is. It's that one conversation that can potentially shift it and have that ripple effect that if they have kids, then that intergenerational shit of what we've passed down, we get to shift. We can change, right? We can go, this is what I've learned. And a lot of that was bullshit based on, you know, my parents doing the best that they could, but I learned a lot of messages. So then what we pass down is, you know, sometimes unconsciously going to be the same. So sharing that message and doing that, yeah, we would love to be like, I want to talk to little you know, 30 years ago, but now we go, you're going to have a legacy. So what we say to you, you want to share to others, and you're going to pass that on to others. I mean, that's the change.
Absolutely.
Just real.
Totally. I mean, yeah. No. I mean, it's so cool, man. I think we're on the same page. Everything that I say, I can tell so much that you're getting. So I hope the listeners are understanding what's going on right now too, because, you know, this is powerful stuff. You know, this is, you know, stuff that a lot of people need to hear. You know, to reach out to our friends, to treat our kids well, to teach our kids to open up. You know, like to not be too, I mean, I'm hard on my kids, but in different ways. I struggle with my temper a little bit. I'm not going to lie, you know, just because, you know, stress gets the best of me sometimes and whatnot. And I'm really working on changing that. But my kids know that they can come to me with anything. They know that they can express weakness, because it's okay. It's okay. And if we get taught, like I was bullied, by my stepdad bullied me a lot. This is topic for another episode, but bullied me a lot when I was real young. And, that just taught me a lot about life and how I want to treat my kids. And, obviously it messed with my self-esteem, but it's taught me how to show up as a better person for them, and for the people around me. So we learn so much from when we were a kid, and yeah, I wouldn't be the person I am today without that.
Yeah. And this is where I kind of, at the end of the day, resilience is built out of adversity. And I'm sure people would rather not have resilience if it meant they didn't have to have had any adversity, but it also makes us who we are. So, it's the double-edged sword.
Absolutely. And this is the stage of life that we're in.
Yeah. That's all right. And I think that it's probably the most real podcast we've had, because I guess people show up and they've had a couple of people that are like, yeah, look, I'm still in some shit right now. But I guess we didn't know what was going to come of this. And I really like that it's gone into a direction where it's like, we can be just raw and vulnerable and connect. And yeah, hopefully others are feeling that connection that we're kind of creating. And hopefully that's rippling out to people listening. But this is what's going to make these differences, whether it be small or big, is getting really vulnerable and real, and just knowing that it all kind of comes back to how we show up for ourselves is how we're going to be able to show up for others, and how we love ourselves and do what we do in ourselves is a direct relationship to that love. So big part of that is acknowledging it, saying it. Matt, that's what you've done, and I love it.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
I am one more thing I just wanted to say. You keep on using the word connection, which I love, because like my top core value as a human is connection. I believe so heavily in connection, and I believe that connection is happiness. And this is just my own, personal, thing. This is what I speak about at my events. But if we have the right connection with in three areas, we'll be happy. With others, if we have good connection with other people, the people around us, if we have a good connection with ourselves, so if we're actually working on ourselves, and if we have a good connection with our environments, then that's it, baby. That's happiness right there. If we're in places that we want to be in, if we're around people that we want to be in, if we're living in the skin that we want to be living in, then that's happiness right there. And that's coming from someone who suffers from depression. I look at that and think, well, if I'm not happy, where am I lacking connection? Am I connected to myself at the moment? Am I connected to my wife, my friends, my kids, or am I disconnected from everything? So I thought I'd mention that just because you keep on saying the word connection, and it pumps me up, man. It pumps me up.
Yeah, dude. Pumps me up too. And I think everything you just said, it doesn't need to be complicated. And it needs to just be this direct line to like, yeah, if we're off balance. This is what I hear when you're saying this to me. If it sort of resonates with you and I'm getting this right, it's like when I'm having an off day, when I'm having an off moment, when I'm a little bit out of alignment, check my connection, right? Is it plugged in, sort of thing? Like, is this with me? What's going on with me? Am I got conflict or resistance with relationships? And am I liking where I'm at and where I'm being? Because that's, all those three things probably make up the chapter like we've been talking about. So how are we going to accept and embrace that stuff? Shift where it needs to shift. Is that a kind of on brand?
Mate, that's it. That's it. Just think about, where do you feel you're happiest? You mentioned the ocean. Maybe this was before we jumped on, we hit record, but you mentioned the ocean. Like, is that where you're happy? Boom, spend more time there. Do you have a group of friends that just make you laugh? Like those embarrassing belly laughs. Hang out with them more often. Are you working on yourself? Are you going to the gym? Are you doing your yoga? Because if one of those things is missing, like if you're always around good people and you're working on yourself, but you're always in shitty places, like if I walk into my house every day and I don't want to be here, I'm not going to be happy. If I open my door and think, fuck, here we go again, which I don't. I love my house, you know, and you spend so much time there. Yeah. So the connection with our environments, with other people, with ourselves, that's everything.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, you practice what you preach, but then you also wear it on your sleeve as well. That it's like, yeah, it's an ongoing working thing. And I think that, you know, that's what I take from that is step into the fact that you don't have to please everybody. You don't have to kind of make up a story. If you're not good, you can share that you're not good. And you know what? The outcome of bringing that is the vulnerability. And I've got this beautiful quote by Brene Brown, literally in a poster on my wall. I'll just share this. Like, staying vulnerable is a risk we have to take if we want to experience connection. And you've done this the whole podcast, and I think this is the way.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, so, that's awesome. That's me in a nutshell. I love that.
That's it. So, I mean, she's a pretty powerful lady, and obviously spits some truth a lot of the time, or Brene Brown. But yeah, you're an embodiment of that, and you embrace that, and that's why you're here. You know, really, really connecting with you, and loved everything you do. And look, I want to be a part of these one conversations, and yeah, reach some people, and let's make some shit happen. I think we can share that message and and just get vulnerable and connect with other people. It'd be really cool.
Hell yeah, brother. I love it. I appreciate you, man. I mean, we've never met in person, and this is the first time we've spoken like this, you know, and it's been unreal, you know, it's been unreal. And I knew it would be after the first minute or two of us talking. I was like, this is good. We're onto the same kind of things here. So I hope you did enjoy today, and I hope the listeners get a lot out of it. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll stay connected, and hit me up. Where can people kind of find you at the moment, Matt?
Look, at the moment, I'm not really, you know, you can look at my Instagram, which is it's at Real Life with MG. I changed that not long ago. So it's at Real Life with MG. Again, life right now is just frantic and stressful. So I've hit the pause button on a lot of my promotional stuff, as in like podcasting and, you know, posting what I used to. But if you scroll back through, there's some pretty powerful things. And my podcast is Real Life with MG, which is a, you know, pretty powerful podcast. So yeah, that's me, man. And look, if anyone has any questions or whatever, just send me a DM, you know, because I'm always happy to, you know, help where I can. If someone's thinking, well, look, I'm struggling with my mental health, what do I do? You know, I'm not a professional, but, you know, I like to point people in the right direction. So, yeah, that's me, my man.
I appreciate that, and that's a really nice soft way to get in with anyone is those offers and invitations, because that's the first step into where they want to go from there. So, appreciate that. I'll put that all up on the show notes, whatever, and. Yeah, we'll be in touch, man. I really appreciate
podcasty stuff.
Yeah, all that shit. All right. Honored to have you, man. We'll connect again soon.
Cool, brother. Thanks very much. See ya.
Do you want to find out more about how therapy can help you kick some goals? Go check out findreasontherapy.com.au or the Find Reason Therapy Instagram page.